Well, welcome back, everybody. As you can see, kind of, sort of, and you will see in the near future, things have escalated a lot. I had to take a lot more off of this car than I wanted to, but luckily I can do it. I have the parts here and we'll get her fixed. All right, so I'm taking the intake manifold off. Normally you don't have to. You got to lean the engine back a little bit to get the torque tube and tranny out, but I don't know how well this is going to pick it up. This MSD intake is so close to the firewall. I partially think it's because I have the AMT solid mounts. I feel like it spaced my engine up a little higher. I'm taking the intake manifold off for my peace of mind. It makes me feel better. That way the intake doesn't get cracked or something stupid and the firewall stays okay. And it's something very easy to do. I've done it once or twice already. So I'm gonna do that first, take that off, and then you have to go into the car, obviously, where the shifter is. And you have to take the center console apart. I have an MGW. Take the shifter assembly off the torque tube and disconnect the steering or the shifter rod shaft that goes back to the tranny. And then that's pretty much for in here. And then everything else is fender well slash for the master cylinder and then underneath the car. So get some things apart and then I'll show you what I did. All right. As you can see, the shifter is out. It's over here. So you have to take off, there's 4 screws here that hold the lid. I think they're like T10, T15-ish. That gets it out of the way, makes it easier. You pop the e-brake boot up. There's 2 7s, sorry. There's 2 7s that go on the side here, and then there's 2 that are here. You'll have a connector, 2 connectors here. This extra connector I have is for my mild to wild switch for my exhaust. Since I have Corsa Extremes, I no longer have that. So honestly, I might just put that harness, delete that harness. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that harness yet. I have a nice switch inside for the mild to wild, so normally you don't have that. And then there's 2 7s, you pop it up, and then you have the heated seat connector, a cigarette lighter, the traction control buttons here, and then up here you have your 4-way switch. You pull all that out, and then you have this rubber boot that's here. It's 4 10s, you take that off, and then the shifter gets held on by 2 T40s, and then there's a T40 that connects the shifter rod to the rest of the car for do the shifting. So it's pretty simple. I've done this a bajillion times by now. So you just pull it up out and stick it off to the side. So, I mean, that's pretty simple there. Sorry, I just remembered this side piece. As you can see, it goes like in here. Once you take the 7 out back here, when you take this, you just kind of pull it this way. And then I usually tilt it down and out like that. You pull that out before you do the actual main centerpiece. But I forgot that, and I was thinking about that as I was taking the light out of the car. So I wanted to touch base that you need to take that piece out too. Now, like I said, I took the intake off. Factory intake, you should be good. Maybe the BTR Trinity might be a little okay, but it's really close to the firewall back here. And you actually have to shave some of the manifold to get it to fit right. So I'm afraid when I lean the engine back, it's going to hit this and either crack this, mess the manifold up, something stupid. So for, I don't know, 30 minutes of my time of pulling this out, I save a headache. Now the only thing is I have to order intake gaskets. I didn't even think about them. I can't reuse the old ones. They're a little rough. Been on the car for a couple years, a couple thousand miles. So while I'm here, spend the $100 in gaskets and do it. But essentially it's mass airflow sensor connector, you have your intake tube, take it off the throttle body. Then you have your purge valve connector, your throttle body connector, and then where does this one go? Oh, the map sensor connector. You have all 4 injectors on that side, cool connector, all 4 injectors and cool connector on this side. And then you just kind of move the harnesses out of your way. And then you have the one braided fuel line here that you disconnect from the fuel rails. Then over here, if you have this still and didn't delete it yet, this is the vacuum supplied to the valves in the back for the factory exhaust. You just disconnect, it's a Lobo hose, and then there's another rubber hose that runs over here to the brake booster that you got to feed up through. Unfortunately, I have aftermarket modifications back there, so it made it a little tough. So I was able to feed the hose here enough to get the clamp off the back of the manifold, and then it was really easy to get. But mine's an MSD intake, so it's 5 Allens, 5mm Allens all the way. Let me come over here and get it. So I have found this socket right here. It's a set I have from work that I stole. They're stubby Allens. I don't know how well the camera's picking that up at the moment. Let's go over here, a little better lighting. So these are stubby Allens that I have. These are standard metric 5mm on a 1/4 inch ratchet. It makes it really easy to reach the back bolts. The back bolts on these go under the firewall. It's kind of rough, but here's the clamp on the brake booster hose. And then as you can see, the back of the manifold, there's a nipple there that goes onto. So if you can, you know, slide the intake forward a little bit and then get to that with a pair of pliers, you're good to go. Just, you got to know your car. I mean, I've had this car apart a bunch of times, so I'm like, all right, you know, I know what to do, and I already had some of it already apart. You got to take your PCV or line off from the dry sump tank that runs to the intake tube. Take that off and either lay it out of your way or take it off completely. And then you have your evap lines, the one that runs right here to this line. Now mine's AN converted, so that's why it looks a little different. That'll run out along and then up over. You got to take them off and take the purge valve out of the way, and then it's pretty simple. These cars are actually, as compact as they are, and as many times as I've had this car apart, like, I'm actually impressed how they go together. Like, it's actually pretty simple to work on. So therefore, I have the intake out of my way, peace of mind in myself. It is what it is. Extra work for me, I don't care. Shifter's out of the way, so next you go underneath and you take all that stuff apart. So in the next clip, I'll show you what I do. I'll take the suspension out and drop everything as once to get to the slave cylinder, and we'll go from there. So cameraman will follow me over here yonder. So here's my tick billet sleeve that I put in a year ago, roughly 1,500, 2,000 miles ago. So the original problem was this line was leaking, and we ended up figuring it out that we cut this, and the stainless steel line was leaking itself. We figured that out, and we were just going to replace the line. Well, the car's been sitting on my lift for me to have time to do it, and we came in this morning, and there's a puddle of fluid on the ground. We don't know where it came. It obviously came from the bell housing. We could see that. So we pulled it apart, and this, somewhere in this area on the bottom here, this sleeve is leaking. I don't know if it's mad at me. I don't know what happened. Car ran great, never had any issues with the pedal feel or anything. And then randomly there's a puddle on the floor. So luckily I was tearing it apart anyway. I already have all these parts that I bought from my second car that I haven't obviously touched in a while. So I have all the parts here, so I'm gonna fix it this weekend and then get it back on the road so I can drive the car in 2 weeks. And then I'll have to email Tick and figure out what they wanna do. So, as you can see, we have the entire rear powertrain out. The torque tube's over there. I already took that off. Pretty simple, honestly. You take the full exhaust off, get it out of your way. You have the e-brake cables that route down through. They come from the body. They route down through and hook. You disconnect the e-brake cables. Left rear caliper stays with the car. You just unbolt the brake line here on the subframe and it stays connected. And then there's a union right beside that disconnects. And then the brake line and the right rear caliper stay with the subframe. It's 4 nuts to the body. I took the sway bar off to get to these nuts easier. You take the 2 13s for the shock off, and then the 4 15s upper control arms. And that's pretty much it. When you take the upper control arm bolts off, there's washers in here for alignment purposes. Keep track of where they go, how many. I got lucky. Each one of my bolts have 2 washers. Keep them organized. So we supported it. Obviously, I have a trans jack, so that works. And then I had me pull it out. I didn't really film any of that. I apologize. When we pulled it out, Tyler was up front with the torque tube. So as soon as we got it back far enough, he held it so it didn't tip forward. I feel like this might be something that I do more of in the future between all our cars. So we're going to probably build a table that we don't have to do that. But a reason I took the torque tube off is, so the whole thing is we're going to replace the slave in all the lines while I'm here. I have the short line. I'm going to do it right, get it done. But also while I'm in here, I should have did something the first time that I didn't do. And I regret it, but now that I'm here, I'm doing it. And I actually ordered those parts for the other car too, so I already have all the parts. So this is your shifter shaft. I'm replacing these ends. There's a guy you can send it to. He'll cut it off and weld fancy heim joints on. I bought from Texas. I think it's Texas. It's either Texas Drivetrain Solutions or Drivetrain something. They sell a kit that you can replace these ends. So there's one roll pin that connects it to the shaft. You knock that out. And then there's a roll pin on each one of these ends, and then you just replace the end. It's kind of hard to see, it's in there. So I'm going to do that. While I'm here, I don't need to. I rebuilt the torque tube a year ago, but while I'm here, I'm taking one snap ring out. I'm going to tap the drive shaft out of the torque tube, just inspect everything. I'm here, it's already apart, and then we'll start putting it back together. And then hopefully in the next week, I'll have it running and driving. I'm going to try to get most of it done today, and then this will be in this video of putting the powertrain back in, maybe get the exhaust and all that done. So we're back together, torque tube's back on it, the new sleeve. I put the new one in, the new clutch line. We reused the bleeder, there's nothing wrong with the bleeder. So we got this prep to go back in. I just put tape on it to hold it in places. I know the last time I put the car together, this was like wedged over here because I wasn't paying attention. So I taped that in the spot it's supposed to be in so that doesn't bite me. The new ends are on, it's just hammer roll pins and hammer roll pins in and out. That was easy. Heat shrink sleeve, you heat shrink the sleeve on. Both ends are in and tight, everything's tight. So, I mean, we're at the point where we're gonna go back together and hope for the best. Well, we're back together, sort of. I mean, most of the way. The car is in the spot the same exact condition it was when I walked in the shop today. Transmission's back in, suspension's back in. I mean, everything's good to go. That wise, we got to run I got to take the wheel liner off and get to the master cylinder to get the clutch line and replace the other end of it. But torque tube's back in, trans back in. I pulled the torque tube apart and inspected it. I mean, a little less than 2,000 miles ago, I rebuilt it a year ago. So I pulled it apart just to make sure everything's good. The new shift linkage is in. Everything's back together. Ran the wiring harness through and everything's hooked up. Let me lower the lift a little bit here. Might as well come over here since you're walking over this way. So, there's 4 bolts on the control arms I was talking about earlier, and then there's 2 on the shock. I recommend, you can do it whatever you want. You can put like the pole jack under, push it up. I like putting the car down on the ground and having the front tires touch the ground, and then I take a normal jack, and just put it on the control arm and jack it up. Make sure you get those bolts started a good bit before you try to run them home. If you try to run them home and they're not started good, you're going to cross thread, strip those threads out of the frame, and that's aluminum. There's no fixing that. I mean, you can time insert. It's very important, so take care of those threads. Same thing with the shocks. Jack it up a good bit. Get everything kind of close to where it goes. Thread them in by hand. And then, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory there. You just tighten it down and don't run her home and strip the threads out, because you'll be really angry when you do that. But now we're to the point where it's clean up the wiring underneath a little bit, put the new starter in, get that heat shield situated, put the exhaust back on it, and then wait for my intake gaskets on Tuesday. All right, so a gentleman asked in the comments of the first video about the harness I'm going to make. So this is the new connector for the C7 starter. This connector goes to the factory C6 plug, and then it gives you the eyelet for the ProMaster I had. So what I'm going to do is cut these off. And then I have a kit that I keep spares at from work. Get I need a big one. There, right there. A bare butt connector. That's a little one. Guess I don't have any big ones. Just a bare butt connector from work. Oh. Oh. Crib it on that one. Don't forget to put the heat shrink on before you fully crimp it. Slide the heat shrink over. Fine. I don't know where my torches are. Then you just heat shrink, melt the heat shrink. And then this stuff's from Ford, so it's good stuff. It's got like goo in it that seals it at the ends once it's fully melted. So it's like a waterproof connection. This is how Ford has you factory. But you can kind of see, I don't know if that camera really picks that up. There's goo coming out at the end. But that's the harness I'm going to make, and now I'll make it pretty by putting wire loom on it. But that way you don't have to cut anything. This plugs in the starter, this plugs into the factory harness, and you're good to go. We'll wait. All right, after I was rudely interrupted. This is the wiring harness. All I did is put a little wire loom on it so it's protected. I just want to show that so the gentleman that commented on the first video can see that's it. Just a wire to go from your factory harness to the starter and you're good to go. We're gonna end it off here. The car, as you can see, is back on the ground. All 4 wheels are on it. You might not be able to see that, but transmission's out. I did everything I wanted to do there and put it back in. So now the car is originally back to the way it was. I still have to put the full exhaust on and mess with my starter and heat shield and all that a little bit, and then do the new clutch line again, or the master line to the slave. We're gonna do the short one that I should have did the first time. And then it's wait for intake gaskets, add fluids, and drive it. So hopefully next weekend, so this video, hopefully I can get it uploaded, edited, and uploaded tomorrow. And then the end video, part 3, the ending of it, running and driving, will be next weekend. And then a week after that, we go to skid pad and I'll actually drive my car. As Tyler says, I don't drive my car, so maybe I'll drive my car this time. But thanks for tuning in, and thanks for dealing with my struggles of owning a Corvette.